What's going on, nation? Welcome to a little overnight Sharky talk. Tuesday morning in the lab. Gonna crack a beer, have a couple cocktails with you guys, talk a little shit, talk a little business, let people know what's going on in the industry. It is gambling Twitter. It is Sharky Waters Nation, 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave or get out of the water. Just cracked one of my favorite beverages. Those of you guys who are local and business oriented know what I'm talking about here. We're going to drink at least one of these and talk some business. Cheers to you guys. Going to retweet this. If you're in the chat, please get in the chat. I apparently have timeout lengths so I can put people in timeout. I'm not sure if something went down with the gun and Anthony on my mild hiatus on Sunday morning, but I know there's been some people talking trash, and we welcome trash talk. We are big dogs. We don't shy away from trash talk. And I've, of course, called out some people that called me out. And it's kind of the back and forth. They call me out. I call them out. I call them back out. We go back and forth. We hang out, the whole thing. It's kind of fun, actually. It's a little bit of a gambling Twitter charade, and it's a little bit of a competitive sphere. And I see my guys in the house talking trash, and I see my guys that are my guys at the highest level. So cheers to you guys. Let's talk business. Let's talk enterprise. Let's ask questions. I'm open for business. The chat should be wide open. If you guys are in here, I see 6 of you guys in here. Please tell me who's in here. Tell us what's going on. Introduce yourself if you're new. If you're not, welcome to the party. Let's hang out. And as I always say, it's a glorious, glorious beverage, Jai Alai. This is a local Florida beverage. I do live in Florida, Central Florida. Cigar City Brewing, delectable beverage. Really a nice one. Nice beverage and nice buzz. And just going to start winding up here as we get more people in here. We got 9 in here now. I'm going to retweet this. I want to see if we can get at least 20 big dogs in the house for this conversation. And we shall see who's alive and well. Please fire up the chat if you guys are capable of it. Bob Candyman in the house. What up, brother? My guy. And I'm not sure what happened with the show with Guns on Sunday morning, but there were definitely some privacy settings that I had not put on my account. So I wonder if somebody was popping off and Guns had to regulate. But if he had to do it, then so be it. You know, some people talking a little trash. So, you know, trash is good. We like that fire, but, you know, sometimes they push a little too far. Foos, what up, brother? Just got home from staying in Orlando. I see you, bro. My guy. Appreciate you, man. Let me just retweet this real quick to get some more hats in this house. And just taking a breath. The buzz settles in very, very nicely. And, you know, off a very nice weekend here in professional football. Obviously, a beautiful night tonight in the league. We're going to get into a great flow in the league. I feel incredibly comfortable in pro ball right now. And, you know, I've been, you know, looking at this league for the better part of a decade. You guys know that. And you know, it's always a project. There's so many ins and outs, so many detailed points that you have to consider. It's one of the most complicated leagues to handicap. I think baseball is right there with it. It's a gauntlet with games, but it's also just so many psychological and numerical angles at every point and every day. And I'm so excited to dominate this season. I mentioned this to you guys. You know, obviously last year went so awry in 1 month. Everything kind of got turned on its head. It happens. That's life. You know, sometimes the apocalypse hits. You never know when it's going to come towards you. It came towards me and my channel and you guys in the community. And, you know, I will forever remember that moment, but I won't let it deter us as we go forward. And, you know, as we come into this new year, 2024, I'm so excited for the opportunity for us to just succeed at the highest level. And it's not myself, it's you guys, it's the community, it's the conversation, it's every day, just the interactions that I'm very blessed to have with you guys. And I never want to take anything away from you guys. And it sounds so cliche. I remember I used to go to rap concerts and the rappers would always say, yo, it's about the fans. And I was like, guys, no, it's about you. You're a dog. You're putting on the show. And it's like, I get it, but it is the connection, and the connection is huge. The connection is huge, and I appreciate you guys connecting with the conversation on a daily basis, and it is so powerful. And just going to hit this one and let's talk some ball. I want to talk some football. I am very, very excited for the professional football card in week 16. It does span the entire Christmas weekend. And Walker Bailey in the house, brother. What's up, bro? It's been at least a couple weeks, I think, maybe a month or two. I think you probably took a little break after the Texas Rangers World Series event. I know you're obviously a huge fan of that. Of course, that's huge emotional high. But here we are 2 months later, and we're sitting here talking about pro ball. And I think it's just a great just slate in general. The way it's going to transpire, just in terms of the general calendar. Thursday night we get a game. Saturday night we get 2 games. Sunday we get a full card, and Christmas night we get a trifecta of games. And I want to open up this conversation with the first official play of this week, and I absolutely love this play. And I don't think I'm going to tell you guys anything you don't know, but the Baltimore Ravens are running a very clean sheet. And this team is flirting with disaster on the road. And I think, and I'm putting it on record right now, 1.5 units. The San Francisco 49ers are going to lay the absolute hammer on the Ravens on Christmas night, 5:15 Pacific. And it just continues to get more difficult for a Ravens team that is just walking the gauntlet of luck and treachery on the road. If you guys look at the game last night against Jacksonville, if you didn't watch it, I'll tell it to you, and I'll tell it to you because I want to sort of just salt the wound a little bit. Jacksonville Jaguars lost the game 23-7. That is one of the most misleading scores in a primetime game this year. Jacksonville Jaguars missed 2 field goals in the first half. Trevor Lawrence had a very inexplicable fumble in the red zone where he literally was non-contact and just dropped the ball out of his hand. And the last play of the half, they refused to spike the ball and got super cute analytically, decided that they were going to outfox the Fox and somehow get a quick touchdown and got no points. So if you look at that just from an analytical perspective, the Jags left 12 points on the table and maybe more. So the Ravens have now covered back-to-back road games outside of the division, dating back to a backdoor cover at the Chargers 3 weeks ago, where Zay Flowers was technically supposed to knee it down at the 1-yard line on a final play to close the game, but he was rambunctious and happy, and he scored. So they weren't really supposed to cover a -3.5 at the Chargers, and the Jaguars gave them the game. That was not the Ravens outperforming the Jags in a lot of formats. Yes, of course, the Ravens did make plays. We're not going to take it away from them. But what the Jags left on the table was immense. So you're getting a Ravens team that is now so utterly fortunate and clean in their environment. Back-to-back road games on the road at the best team in the league that takes no prisoners. This is a hammer spot in the final game of the card, 8:15, Christmas night. On it for 1.5 units, San Francisco -5.5. Let's dominate. And for those of you guys in the chat, place that right now. Big time spot. That might get steamed up to 6.5, 7. It opened at 4.5 2 days ago, I believe. I saw a 3, and I didn't believe that. I think that might have been like an August line. And oftentimes these books, that the reference points that I look at will say that it's 3, and then I look back, it's like a line that was in the middle of the summer. So I think it's a 4.5 open. It's getting steamed up a point already. People are fully aware of how much of a hammer spot this is for the Niners. So place that bet, top play on the board. And ironically, oddly, interestingly, comically, whatever you want to call it, the last game on the entire card, and it is Christmas night. So let's fucking lay the hammer, Niners. And good, better bets in the house. What's up, brother? What's going on? Walker says, wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo won the AFC. Completely agreed. Foos says, yeah, the Jags played terribly. Wasn't really the Ravens playing that well. 100%. And, it really is. just the intrigue of looking at box scores and game flows in professional football, where it's so interesting. Where if you came down from another planet, you saw a final score, you would say 23-7, outclassed, outmanned, like just totally different competitive level. But it wasn't that at all. It wasn't that at all. There's a very, very significant statistical argument that Jacksonville could have been up at least 3 points at the half, and that would have changed the entire game flow. And the Ravens have just been playing with it for weeks now. They 2 weeks ago at home, they had a punt return walk off in overtime against the Rams. The Ravens really are playing with it, and this is just what happens in pro ball. It just you can only run the table for so long in these winning streaks, particularly when you're flirting with disaster and you're getting advantageous outcomes versus opponents that are pretty equally graded to you. This is a hammer spot for the Niners without question, and it's going to be a hammer. I would be shocked if the Niners don't win this game by 10 points or more. I think you're in a great spot here. Yeah, great spot. I'm going to take a sip of beer, guys. Just trying to get a little mini buzz here. And Jeff Sheesby, my brother, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Old Man Who Bets, traveling down to Florida overnight. Will be at my house in the morning. So I'm going to get a little buzz, wake up to a cup of coffee with the old man, who's actually the younger man, but we love him to death. And shout out to you guys for always riding the wave. Let's talk a little more business. I got a couple more early looks here. That's the only play that I'm actually officially on right now. I did just play 1.5 units on the Niners at -5.5. So get that in, top play of the board. And as I said, Christmas Day will be a beautiful one for us. I think we'll probably have 1 or 2 NBA plays on Christmas Day as well, and hopefully we'll cash all of it. So let's put that in right now, and let's get that before it gets up to 6.5, 7. I think the market is going to come heavy on that. I'm not entirely sure if there's people going to be buying back on the Ravens. Walker says Eagles should start trending back up next week. Biggie Rock in the house. What up, brother? I'm not sure what that emoji means, but cheers up, fears down regardless. Hope you guys are well. Walker says box score L's always catch up. As the Eagles, 100%. They've been flirting with it all year, and I think the Ravens are the next point that comes down. There's just no way around it if you really go through their games. They're not dominating teams. They're getting very advantageous outcomes. So let's dominate. And let me just retweet this, guys, on a beautiful Tuesday morning here in December. As I mentioned, my brother's coming down to hang out, and we're going to party this week, and we're going to dominate the books always. Just give me 1 second, gentlemen. Excuse me, guys. Let's look at the other games here. Couple other games that I'm not going official with, but I do really like. I really like the Jacksonville Jaguars bouncing back at the Bucs. If you look at what the Jags have been doing here, the Jags are just kind of capped in the underside of their average. And this is where we need to stay the course with this Jacksonville team. As we just mentioned, gift wrapped a game, if you will, to Baltimore. And now you get Tampa Bay coming back home where they are not performing well as an underdog. And they're coming off a huge road win where Baker Mayfield played just absolutely excellent ball at Green Bay. And I think this is just a beautiful merge dynamic to buy low Jacksonville. And that's a beautiful thing to actually be able to buy low Jacksonville, who were actually too hot when they were 8-3 or 8-4 going back a few weeks. And this is, I believe, 3 consecutive losses against the AFC North, which I think is also important. I think when you look at the class of divisions, they just lost 3 consecutive games to Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Baltimore. So when you look at what's going on here, you say to yourself, okay, so Jacksonville probably would not function very well if they were playing in the AFC North, but now they get a chance to go outside of that environment and function better. And as I mentioned, this is just not where Tampa Bay functions well. Tampa Bay is actually 0-2 this year outside of the division. at home as an underdog. Detroit did get them with significance, and Philly did get them with significance. This is a great spot for Jacksonville. I'm probably going to place this bet quickly after we get off the air. This is a great look. If you can get Jacksonville on the money line, I think Jacksonville, I would be shocked if they don't win this game. I think Tampa Bay is not of the talent quality, and the law of averages suggests Jacksonville will come up and Tampa Bay will come down. Situationally, as I mentioned, Tampa Bay is worse at home as an underdog outside of the division, and Jacksonville has performed well. Now that I'm recalling off the top of my head on this number outside of the division, we did back them at -3 Pittsburgh in week, I believe, 7, 8, 9, or 10, and they covered that. Great spot here, guys. I mean, I'm going official with it right now. I'm not placing. I'm on the air ranting over a beer, but this is a Jacksonville spot. Book that as well officially. We will be on this officially. 2 top plays already. San Francisco -5.5. Jacksonville on the money line. And Biggie Rock in the house. What do you have going on, Shark? You an old man? I'm not an old man. I will never be an old man, honestly. I honestly, I really pride myself on taking care of myself and the fitness of my life and just keep myself young. So, as I always say, we'll keep our body young and we'll get wiser in the mind. I think that's the goal. Get wiser in the mind, observe life, tabulate it, learn, but stay young in your body. So always trying to keep it young like that, brother. And big dogs. And let's keep going down the card here. Those are the first 2 top plays. Excellent spots. I would say literally just top spots here. Bears are hosting the Cardinals at 425. That's probably a Cardinals spot. The Cardinals on the road are always a great underdog. Bears are a little capped. Bears are great as an underdog in this campaign. They're not great as a favorite. This is probably a 3-point game. I think you're getting significant line value, which, of course, you guys know I don't love on the Cardinals. This is probably where the Bears win the game by 3 points. This totals at 44.5 on a 4.5. You're probably looking at a game somewhere around like 24-21 final. I think the Cardinals are the spot. When I get into these conversations, I start to go down the list, and particularly late season where we are, I start to think to myself, we could almost play every single game because we are that data abundant. And I do want to make that comment on the NBA as we start to go forward. We're about to go on a gigantic upward movement point. This is zero bullshit. And I know people have struggled with NBA with me for the last year. I want to tell you guys, dead out from my mind and my soul, we are going to absolutely dominate now. I feel great about it. Stay the course. Please bet with us. Please don't shy away right before we go on our massive upswing, because that's what people do, unfortunately. And but staying the course with football here. I think the Cardinals are the look in that game. I think it's going to be tight. I think buying the +4.5 is definitely the look. I think when you are backing the Bears as a juice point at home, that's definitely not where you want to back against Kyler Murray and a scrappy, well-coached, albeit not effective on the actual money line Cardinals team. 1 o'clock Browns, Texans. I like the Texans here. I do like the Texans here. I'm looking at the chat and seeing if anybody was talking about the Texans. I'm not sure if anybody mentioned the Texans. My guy Raul, what's up, brother? Appreciate the tips always. For those of you guys that have not tipped me, I appreciate you guys so much. Raul tips me on a regular basis. He's a great guy. Doesn't have to be your whole bankroll, $10, $20, $50. If you feel the energy, I put my whole life into this. It's much appreciated. You don't have to do it on a regular basis. It's just connection and energy. I appreciate you guys so much on the tips. Keep that in mind, please. And but staying the course with the football conversation. Texans, I do think, first of all, have huge upside if CJ Stroud comes back. That is the ultimate question mark in this game. I think we're still in the unknown point at that. I think the opening number is very strong. I think what you're looking at here is exactly what Joe Flacco did at the LA Rams a couple weeks ago. I believe 3 weeks ago in his only environment as Browns quarterback, as an underdog on the road outside of the division. I think this is a Texan spot. I think getting it at 2.5 is a great number. I think even Case Keenum probably covers the number. If we want to actually use corollary environments and conversational environments in cross-section spaces here, if you really look at what the Browns did last week at home against the Bears, The Browns were pretty fortunate to backdoor the Bears in the fourth quarter. Now they got to go on the road to the Texans, who have a much better coach, much better defense, much better mentality. I got to be honest with you guys. I think the Browns have it coming to them with significance. I think the Texans could rip them. I think that this whole scenario with Flacco at home, covering a couple spreads and backdooring on the money line last week. I think going on the road, this is a total environmental shift. People get high on it. The media will be high on it. The media will be talking all their shit about the renaissance of this guy who's 38. Trust me, I'm 38. I love him for it, but I'm just saying traveling on the road, not going to be the same environment. Texans big time play here. I'm probably going to play that as well right after we get off the air here. I just want to look at the quarterback environment here. Cowboys, Dolphins, 425. That's an absolutely egregious spot to handicap. I would say if you bet that game, you might as well play the lottery. I think it's just an incredibly difficult game to cap. I was talking about this in my private group chat earlier. It's just where both teams function poorly, and it's kind of an ironic, bizarre scenario where you got two teams that are both 10-4. So it should be this great showcase game, and it will be from a matchup standpoint. But the Cowboys have been awful on the road, and the Dolphins have been great at home, but they haven't played one legitimate high-quality team at home all year. So I think you're just seeing this bizarre cross-section where you have two great teams, two great records, but neither team performs well in this scenario, which makes the game incredibly intriguing here. 425 Hard Rock in Miami Gardens, North Miami Beach, Florida. I might go down there. My brother's here. We might cop some tickets for that game, but it's going to be a total toss-up game in that scenario. And segueing down the line here, and Walker, I just don't think there's an access point. I think you could make a significant argument to either side of the game. I really do. I think I could sit here and I could convince you for 20 minutes that Dallas is going to bounce back. Miami's terrible at home against opponents of this quality. They've been cleaning up the bad teams, this and that. And I could go down the same exact line. I could tell you the same story as to exactly why Dallas cannot win on the road, will not perform against this type of offense, and doesn't travel with any sort of competitive mentality. I think it's just an absolute toss-up, and it's just a tough spot to bet. But people will bet it, and the books will probably make a lot of money off it, actually, because I think this is a dead coin flip game. Going down the line here, Panthers, Packers laying 4.5 on the road. I think it's an absolute just a toss game. I think there's no access there. I think, you want to back the Panthers theoretically. It's a crazy short number. Panthers are showing upward movement. Panthers have performed well outside of the division as a small dog. They performed well. I remember in this spot against CJ Stroud and the boys at plus 3.5, they did win the game outright. Panthers are competing slightly upward movement. And I think that's also the law of averages in pro football, where, teams that start out terribly, it's not so much that they have to zigzag late season. Whatever momentum they're showing, if it's going up, it's going to continue to go up. If it's going down, it's going to continue to go down. I think the Panthers probably are going to continue to come up. I think, Bryce Young is getting more comfortable. I think the coaching change probably has helped. I think it's still fleeting. It's questionable. I think the entire Packers scenario is very difficult to figure out. I think they've been very inconsistent on the road. It's not necessarily opponent type, line, weighting, anything. It's just very difficult to figure out. Walker says Packers youngest team in football, could see it come down in high pressure football games. 100%. You don't have a read on the Packers specifically. And as I mentioned with the Panthers, I do suspect they will find some sort of ATS efficiency coming up in these games. And it's always going to be close. You're not going to find margin on these games. Like, this is probably going to be a 3-point game. And I think you're probably looking at the sharp side with the Panthers. And you guys know that I'm definitely not, an auto contrarian dog type of bettor at all. But I do think this is just the wave that's coming up a little bit for the Panthers, where you're probably finding more access on the dog there, albeit not exactly a top play. Going to take a breath here, guys. Just have a sip of water. Firing off here on a suddenly not so casual Tuesday morning. And love to give you guys these fast rundowns on the first take NFL card, because this is what I do in my mind, and I love to give you guys a showcase to it. And this is ultimately where most of the top plays come from because, particularly late season, you don't really have to go into sick detail on these spots because we are so data abundant. We really know these teams so incredibly well. And that's where we are. So the three top plays right now, we're looking officially at San Francisco minus 5.5, Jacksonville money line 1 unit, and Houston not playing right now. I do want to see the quarterback situation. Houston's a great spot. Houston is a great spot. Let's continue the conversation. Commanders at the Jets, sketchy as hell. I think this is one of the worst games on the entire board to bet. For the same reason I just said that I thought that Dallas was a horrendous game at Miami from a gambling standpoint. The irony, the intrigue of the same divisions playing, yet the polar opposite level of quality, Commanders, Jets. This is the beauty and the comedy of sports betting, and also just the way the schedule goes through. It's MetLife Stadium, 1 o'clock. I think the Jets at -3 have some access here. I think the Jets obviously just are very, very inconsistent. I think this is probably going to be Zach Wilson again. I'm not entirely sure. I think if you look at what the Commanders have done on the road this year, they've been very, very hot for a long period of time, showing noticeable cratering down. I think they're a disrupted group. I think the coach is probably going to be gone. I'm not sure if he even got fired last week. Don't check me on that, but I think Ron Rivera is absolutely not returning. I think Sam Howell is just a renegade quarterback who has a lot of talent, but doesn't have any discipline. I think he puts himself into a really bad position against this defense, which is incredibly, incredibly aggressive and very, very on opportunity with the ball for a loose quarterback who is highly prone to interceptions. If I had to cap this game, I would lean towards the Jets. I do fear this is very, very sharp. However, I don't really trust either side of this game. Lions, Vikings, I see the line here. I'm just looking down the list quickly. I see 3.5. Lions, Vikings is going to be an interesting point. I do want to cap this game from a numerical standpoint. I want to look at the line functionality last year in this division. I do believe the Lions got them last year. That was Kirk Cousins playing. I think it was Week 16 in Detroit, 34-23. I don't think you can really necessarily play the revenge element. Of course, totally different roster groups. You got, Josh Dobbs in here hanging out, just grinding for his career and just putting out a great narrative about him. I think the Lions have shown an inability situationally to perform on the road. They're a much better home team. They're coming off a blowout win, of course, dating back about a week ago. But I do think that this is going to be potentially a tight line. I think it's a little bit short when you see, obviously, the Lions running a very, very beautiful campaign, 10-4 here versus 7-7 Vikings. I would like to see the Lions take care of business here. You guys know I like the Lions. I backed the Lions week after week prior to the last couple of weeks. So I did sense they were capped, and that's why I laid off them after taking 1 or 2 losses on the back end of their, I would say, really, really sustained heater dating back to the middle of last year. I think they were 10-1, 12-1 ATS over a 13-game period, but I think they're a little capped. I think they're just sharpened up here. I do think they probably win the game, and that's one of those bets that Guns and I talk about, Anthony and I talk about, and we say, ultimately, lay the money line at -150. You're probably winning the game. It's like baseball. Lay 1.5 to 1. You probably win the game. I don't see Detroit losing this game, but I do think this could be close. Seattle on the road at the Titans. That is going to be a really, really tough spot for Seattle. Obviously, coming off a huge win tonight against the Birds, going on the road at the Titans. I don't know what to make of this game. Ultimately, I think that one of the problems with betting the Titans here is that the Titans' functionality has been very poor as a home dog with Will Levis. And if you actually look at Seattle dating back to some of their early season games outside of the division on Eastern time, they did function poorly as a dog. I do remember betting Cincinnati against them, and Cincinnati did cover. I think we bet some other team against them as well. Just based on the line distribution and the weighting here and the functionality of it, this is actually a Seahawks line. As much as it's a trap spot, I do think this is actually a Seahawks line, and I think the Seahawks could come through here. Walker says that Levis is potentially injured. That could explain it as well. I was going to say you haven't seen Seahawks favored on the road in this margin point at -2.5, -3 all year, particularly on Eastern time. I think this is, as I mentioned, it's a trap spot for them. It's definitely a letdown spot. It's a brutal spot early kick time here, 10 a.m. Pacific time at 1 a.m. in Tennessee. But I do think the line is on them, and the line always stands above the narrative. So I think that this is a Seattle line. And I think, when at this point in the season, too, the last 3 weeks of the season, motivation does hold a lot of weight. And when you see a team like Seattle sitting here at 7-7, right in the middle of the wild card picture, and the Titans really have nothing to play for, the motivation is going to be bigger down the stretch of the game in the third and fourth quarter. So I think that probably the lean there, as much as I just talked on the narrative for the Titans, I think the lean is probably the Seahawks. And Colts, Falcons, I like the Colts again. I love the Colts. I just think they're just a great grinder unit. I love their coach, Shane Steichen. I love Gardner Minshew. I think it's the perfect combination of an underrated, totally disrespected quarterback who's actually very good. If we're being honest, this guy is not like a stopgap. I think after this year, when Anthony Richardson comes back, I think that it's very, very legitimate that Gardner Minshew will be a starter on another team next year. However, I do fear this for him. He might not function as well because he won't have as good of a coach. And it's this funky environment where guys will get signed out of great situations. He's in a great situation right now with Indianapolis. Found so much upside. He'll get signed for a great contract, and then he won't be able to perform at the same level with a lesser franchise, with a worse coach. But I think at least at this point in time, he's in the zone, and there's no reason not to back the Colts at 1 o'clock here on Christmas Eve. There's no way around it. It's just a spot for the Colts, period. And going back to the Saturday games, you are looking at Cincinnati laying 2.5 on the road to the Steelers. Steelers are starting Mason Rudolph, I believe, which is definitely an unknown. I'm not entirely sure how much we can grade the line based on that. The guy hasn't played, I believe, since he got knocked out in Cleveland last year. Remember, he had that like bizarre physical dispute. Was it Myles Garrett and the whole thing? And it just went down like that. But the guy's obviously a grinder out of Oklahoma State. But regardless, I think it's just an unknown. Bengals obviously running a bit of a clean sheet with Jake Browning here. Jake Browning was not expected to win multiple games in a row. I think he's a competitor. I love his game coming out of Washington. I love the whole thing. I just think it's hard to grade. I think it's hard to grade. There's a lot of unknown in this game. And you saw what happened last week with the Bengals. 3-point game, 3-point spread. It actually finished at 3 points in overtime against Minnesota. So I think this is potentially graded in the exact same margin point, maybe not a lot of exploitability. Bills at Chargers. Bills laying the hammer line here. This is interesting because the Bills now are really hot. The Bills need to win this game, but the thing that you have to ask yourself is, do the Bills have to win this game by more than 10 points? And this is where we kind of get back into that weird zone with the Bills where it's like, are they going to cover a big spread? I will say this, most of their mishaps were at home on these big spreads. So I don't entirely think that they're going to lay down here. This line, without question, is all over the Bills. I mean, this is a blowout line. So historically, you do want to back an out-of-division opponent like this, particularly at 8-6 record in desperation, 2-4 away. They're showing a lack of efficiency on the road, and they're laying over 10 points. This is a Bills line. It speaks to a Bills blowout. I'm not going to get there yet, 8 o'clock on Saturday night, but it's a Bills spot without question. You're not backing the Chargers here. And 8 o'clock Thursday, Saints-Rams, a really tough game. Really tough game. Both teams are bye teams. Both teams are hot. Both teams have the same record. Both teams are in the environment. I think that you would lean to the Saints here, if I'm being honest. I think the Saints have more upward movement. I like the Saints' camaraderie, their flow. I think this is very similar to what I said about the Bears game against the Cardinals. Out of division, 4.5 line. I think you're just going to see a 3-point game here, and all you're doing is backing a number based on teams that are supposed to play each other pretty close. Would lean the Saints here. But just finalizing this conversation, and I will segue to NBA. The top spots were officially on Jacksonville on the money line. San Francisco -5.5, and I'm waiting on Houston is the third play. I think that Buffalo probably has some access. I didn't talk about the Raiders-Chiefs on Monday Night Football. I didn't talk about the Giants-Eagles. I think the Raiders-Chiefs is probably a toss, if I'm being honest. I think -10 is very well graded for the Chiefs. Chiefs are not great at home on these numbers. I think the Eagles-Giants is theoretically a blowout line for the Eagles, but I think, again, a lot of question marks. I think, obviously you saw what happened tonight. Just the team didn't have a lot of energy. Jalen Hurts was sick. Theoretically, if he just has a sickness, a cold, some sort of some sort of just illness that will pass. He should be good by Monday night, Christmas Day, but we just don't know there. So just giving you guys the officials now: 1.5 units, San Francisco -5.5, Jacksonville on the money line, and those are the only two I'm going to give out right now. We're looking at Houston with significance. I do think Buffalo has access. Didn't talk about Patriots, Broncos. I do think the Broncos are. That's just a terrible game on Christmas Eve at 8:15 at 6.5, 34.5. Like, that game is so sharply graded. I do like the Lions with some significance. I do think the Cardinals have some access as a dog on the road. I do think the Seahawks are the line. I like the Colts. So just going down the list here, because usually these are all winners before I overthink everything on Thursday afternoon. The spots would be, if we're going to just rip the board: Saints, Bills, Colts, Seahawks, Lions, Texans, Jags, Cardinals, and 49ers. Yeah, it's probably like 9-0. If you guys had just played everything I said for the last 10 years, you'd be millionaires. Like, I'm just a human being that overthinks everything, because we actually put money on these games, and all of a sudden there's money involved and we start to overthink. Like, every time especially when we're data abundant in sports, every game is going to win. Every game is going to win. Like, yesterday I didn't do a show. And the only reason I didn't do a show is because I was actually just so sick in my mind. And I was like, I don't want to talk about these games. I know they're all going to win. And I just knew they're all going to win. And now they're all these are winners. Like, every one of these games is winners. Like, when I study sports in this detail, we just know what teams are going to do. And that's it. It's week 16. We know what they're going to do. So we're going to go 8-0 there, period. Like, there's no way. Who's going to lose? Who's going to lose? I don't know. Who's going to lose in that? Like, maybe, okay, Texans, if they don't start their quarterback, that changes it. Lions might push. Seahawks at 2.5 is a great line. Colts should hammer the Falcons. Bills might not cover. Saints might not cover. But, I mean, that's so clean. So clean. Beautiful. 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 Cheers, guys. Let's talk about it. What do you guys think? Drop some comments. 15 guys in the chat. Drop some comments. That's a 35-minute breakdown right there. Yeah, I love the 49ers. Love the 49ers. I think the Ravens they have it coming to them. Just have it coming to them. No way around it. No way around it. I think the Rams probably win the game on Thursday night by 3 points. Saints are scrappy as hell. Saints are coming. They have confidence. They have motivation. They're starting to get into an offensive flow. The Rams have just been a little bit too clean recently. And it's just one of those lines where you're going to see a 3-point game, I think. I think the Colts might hammer the Falcons. I think the Colts have just absolute superior personnel and coaching to the Falcons. I think Arthur Smith is a deadweight coach. I think Desmond Ridder is a deadweight quarterback. I'd love to back the Lions with some significance. The Vikings are just kind of hard to figure out. We're sitting here on an under 8.5 Vikings ticket, if you guys bet that in the preseason with us, which is just so close right now. I think they're going to finish up at 8-9. I think they lose twice to the Lions, and they might beat the Packers. But this is actually shaping up beautiful. I remember when I dropped this back in August, people said I was insane. People always say I'm insane, though, because I'm very contrarian and I'm very numerical in my handicapping. So, I basically do the opposite of what 99% of people think. Like tonight when we bet the NBA, people thought I was insane for backing Toronto at a -10 point and, laying all this significant whatever. And it's no, guys, you got to look at the numbers. Sports betting is numbers. It's analytics. It's just numbers. It's not about, what you saw with your eye and the whole thing. So the Vikings have to play 2 games against the Lions and 1 against the Packers to finish up here. So if the Lions beat them this weekend, they're not going to cover that bet when we win, because I don't see them ever beating the Lions in Detroit on January 7th. And they have to play the Packers at home on New Year's Eve. prime time game Sunday night, Packers could win that game easily. So I think we're looking pretty good there. Yeah. Oh, Walker, you're smart as hell. You're smart as hell. You're smart as hell. Bro, it's hard to be smart in this world because everybody's eyeball testing everything, you know? It's hard to be that guy. It really is. It's like you're on an island, you know? And it's one of those things where like most of the guys that I, have good connections with and chats with, like yourself and my guy Petros and Bob and some of the other guys in the chat, Raul, full trust, big time trust. Um, think analytically, think numerically, and most people are sports fans and ex-athletes to a certain degree where they watch the games and they say, well, that can't happen. That line is just incomprehensible. How could you ever do that? And I always say this to people, guys, I'm an ex-sports fan. I'm a huge sports fan. I watched sports for 35 years. I'm an ex-athlete. I played D1 sports in college. I know the eyeball test. I learned through my own career losing money. The eyeball test leads you to losing. And when I started to realize that sports betting is not about knowing sports, it's about understanding the numbers and the statistical frequencies and patterns, you can literally forget you ever watched sports. It's like betting stocks or real estate or foreign currency or crypto. Are you guys masters in a foreign language or foreign business or crypto? Most aren't. The guys that come through on it are statistical, numerical analysts. And this is what I've said now for 5.5 years, and I say it on the Bet US show every day. I don't want to bore you guys to details with the numbers. Everything I say in terms of what's going to happen, in terms of what's the players are going to do and the teams, I already looked at the numbers. So I don't even, truthfully, with just being honest with you guys, most of the things I tell you guys on the shows, that's just because people don't understand the numbers. So I have the numbers in front of me, but I tell you guys what's going to happen in the game just because that's what people understand. But it's all numbers. It's all numbers. Sports betting is numbers. It is not narratives. And most narratives get people in trouble. Most eyeball tests get people in trouble. It builds egos. We've seen this. I've had some, controversies with guys that without question look at eyeball test on court stuff and say, well, that's what they do. We're beating the Vegas line. And I always say, why is the Vegas line that if you know so much, Sir Handicapper? If you're so smart, Sir Handicapper, why are you not creating sports books and becoming a billionaire yourself because you know everything? And you just have to remember that most handicappers on gambling Twitter are sports fans that watch sports that handicap because of their eyes. And they just unavoidably cannot get that bias out of their handicap. And I will say this, it took me about 2 or 3 years to get that out of my existence. And this is why I always find it so fascinating when people take personal offense to what I say, because I say, guys, I was exactly you. I was precisely you. I had a lot of chaos in my mind as a handicapper. I had a lot of eyeballs in my mind. I saw all the narratives. I thought about all the narratives. I thought about all of it. I considered all of it. And I worked through it over years and years and years of work. And that's where it's so interesting for me that people will get perturbed by my comments because I say to them, I was you. I know exactly what you're looking at. I know why you think those angles. I know why you overthink. I know why you cross-reference all these different things. I've been doing it for 10 years and I've done it every day of my life. So I know all the angles and I've cross-referenced all of it. I had the same chaos. And yeah. And numbers and narratives just means the fact that the numbers are the baseline and the narratives are the conversation. And there's always a reasoning behind the numbers. But obviously doing a lot of content, I have to give you guys an explanation that you can understand. Like I can't sit here. When I used to go on the line functionality spiels, when I used to do the shows with Jay Money would legitimately get annoyed at me If you watch those shows, he'd be like, uh-huh, 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 uh-huh. And I would be like, is this guy serious? He legitimately was annoyed at me because I was giving you guys the numbers. And the reason why Jay cut off the show is because he doesn't fundamentally like working with me because I give too much detail. He wants smut, if you will. And it's just insane because we built such a great show, but he didn't want that. He wanted quick. He wanted just to get in and out. He wanted guys like Crispy Cappin who are just jovial. You know, I'm business. When I do shows, I drink coffee, I have adrenaline, and I want to certifiably dominate. This is not fun for me. And I think that that was part of the problem. He wanted fun. So cheers up, down. Let's fucking dogs. You know, I don't want to sit here and talk trash on guys that I used to work with because I actually really like these guys. But I do think that it's super interesting that it just moved a different direction, mostly because of my intensity, actually. If I'm being super honest with you guys, mostly because of my intensity. I'm very, very competitive. I'm very, very intense. And in terms of working with me, it's not easy. It's not easy. And I know that. I absolutely know that. So, guys that have worked with me, I appreciate them so much for working with me because they can vibe with me on screen. And I want to give a shout to my guys in Bet US who have been amazing. Sean Green is doing just incredible work. Love him to death. Junior Brown, my guy, we're making sick moves. Just did the first show with Chris Farley today. Amazing conversation. And Noobs, great conversation every day. And it's a blessing to work with those guys. Beautiful. But here's the thing. It was always a blessing to work with Jay Money too. I love working with Jay Money. I just couldn't believe that he got, I would say, flustered by my on-air content. I couldn't believe that, actually. I really couldn't believe that. When it came down to it last winter, I was like, wow. Like the amount of work that I did and this guy's annoyed by my on-air quality. It was just odd. And I don't know. It's interesting how people work and how people, run around and do their thing. But it just blew my mind because I'd been doing that show for 2 years and I probably put 100+ hours on record. I probably prepped for 500 hours to do those shows, to talk about every single game, deliver plus 165 units on that show for 2 years. I had one bad month last year. One bad month. One. And that was it. And that's insane. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. Gloria K, what's up? See you on that. Bryce Merrill, my guy. Appreciate it, brother. No doubt. No doubt. You're absolutely right. And, as I said, I'm definitely a project to work with. I look at myself to a certain degree like Colin Cowherd, not necessarily from the bloviating conjecture and narrative driven commentary, but you guys know I could run a daily show and talk to myself for 3 hours and talk to you guys. I would love to do that, actually. I would love to run a daily show and just talk to you guys about whatever's going on. So for me to work with other guys sometimes, the energy is immense. It's huge. And it's something that I've learned over the process of my career is that, like I say to myself, like, you're good. Like, just relax. You're good. You're good. But it took me some work to do it because it's not my natural energy. Like, I'm naturally a host energy. And that's why, like, when you see the shows that I do with Guns Picks, Anthony, the Three Ways, I'm going to be doing a show with Junior starting on December 27th on a different channel, which I will tell you guys about starting after Christmas. And my absolute top energy is when I'm, riding the wave, if you will, like when I get big time, because I just love to do it. I love to bring that big energy and just shoot the shit at the highest level and just bring that level. And, when I started doing the videos, the musical videos and the NFL primetime videos, I love to do that. I honestly have so many things that I love to do and I love to bring in terms of content and entertainment that I haven't done because I'm working on so many different angles and I'm talking to so many different people and just trying to figure out what's going on. But like even earlier tonight, I wanted to do a play on the Eagles game. I had no angle on the game, and I was actually saying to a couple of people privately, I want to fire off a video. I love to do it. I know you guys love to watch it. I think it's very entertaining. And I was like, I don't have a fucking angle on the game. Like I can't drop a play on this game. I had no idea what was going to happen. So that was that. But I love to host and I love to just bring the energy and I love to just, bring it up to a high level. But I will say this. Sean Green is a great host and he's doing just an incredible job on the Bet US show. I genuinely really enjoy waking up for that show. And it's actually awesome to see because it's a totally new show. Like none of us have ever worked together before. So it's for it to come together so quickly and just feel such a great energy and a conversational aspect. It's super enjoyable. So I want to give a shout out to Sean. He does so much work, but not cliche, because you guys know this. I don't give praise to people unless I really firmly believe that. I really enjoy working with Sean. I think he's doing a fucking great job and it's starting to really pop. So it's fucking exciting. And yeah, we have Texas at -4. All the college football plays are looking, I think, pretty good as we go forward. The New Mexico State play was an absolutely horrendous loss. I was actually asleep when that went down. It was the other day during the Saturday afternoon card, and I was like, I looked at the score afterward. I actually texted Guns, and I was like, did those guys go out partying the night before? Like, how did that even go down like that? Because it's really rare that you see a team like that, like a kind of FBS newcomer laying 2.5 points to, I wouldn't say a stalwart, but at least, very representative Mountain West, Derek Carr, the kid last year, I forget his name, but legit quarterbacks. And they get steamed up by market too, which is usually all sharps. And you guys know I don't pay attention to that, but in terms of bowl games, which are obviously kind of just to a certain degree one-offs, when I saw that steamed up from 2.5 to 3.5, I was like, oh, this is probably a blowout. Like something's going on here. Like the market knows what's up. The team was dead, absolutely dead, just dead, 37-10, like just no, like unfound on the field. And I was like, I'd have Guns. I was like, bro, do we have some knowledge on this? Like, what happened? Like, how do the books miss this line by 30 points? And yeah, Jake Haener. Yeah, 100%. But like, bro, like that game, I mean, like we're talking like when I saw that final, I was like, the books missed this line by 30 points. What happened here? And apparently the AD at New Mexico State didn't allow them to practice in the facility for like the week leading up to the game. So they had no practice leading up to the game. I don't know if that's legit. I was talking to CT Betts about it. That's what he said. And I was like, what? So apparently the AD at New Mexico State like was just, in just handcuffing them. And apparently the coach in the post game called out the AD for that nonsense. So I'm not entirely sure. I don't know. But I will tell you guys, if you guys didn't see I posted these plays about 2 weeks ago. I do want to give you guys the officials. I think we're looking great on this. I dropped, I think it was 7 plays. I think we're going to go like at minimum 5-2 here. We already lost New Mexico State, but I think it goes upward from here. Let me take a sip, guys. Just going to take a breath here as well. 53 minutes in, quick. I could, as I said, I could probably talk to you guys for 3 hours. That's probably where we're going to go with this. Eventually, we're going to do a lot of long form conversational shows and stuff. And let me just click back in here and see where we are here with the scores. Yeah, Walker, 100%, 100%. When I was handicapping it, I actually was trying to eyeball what I thought would happen. And I think, it's obviously speculative to a certain degree, loose bowl games, these games, to a certain degree, these teams just, you don't know who's going to care and whatnot. But I think we got very legitimate CLV on every single one of these plays. And again, these were posted on December 4th. So it is what it is. But we have Troy at -7 against Duke. That's minus 7.5 now. We have Air Force at +3. That's +2.5 now. We have the over in the G-Tech UCF game. That's at 67.5 now. We have 64. We have Bowling Green +4.5. That's +3.5. We have San Jose State -9.5. It's 10.5 now. We basically beat every single line by at least 1 point. And when I was capping this, I was looking at just the dynamics of it and the shortness of the lines. So it wasn't necessarily CLV capping or anything, but what I was looking at is just the dynamics and what the line was telling me. So, for example, like when you see San Jose State versus Coastal Carolina has been an absolute unit for like 2.5, 3 seasons. They're cratering down. They're 7-5. San Jose State has the same record, 7-5. It's kind of like the NBA. When you see two teams with the same record, they should be like a pick 'em on a neutral field. One team's laying 10 points. So it's telling you a massive talent discrepancy and motivational discrepancy. And this is what I look at in these neutral games, where I think like the only edge is the line versus the static environment. And that's what I see. I just see a blowout line there. And when I see Minnesota out of the Big Ten laying 4.5 points to Bowling Green, who I know has been very good on the road all year. That's why I bought +4.5. I thought it was a short line. And I also thought just situationally, Bowling Green has a lot more motivation in the game. I thought James Madison running an incredibly clean sheet at 11-1, laying only 3 points to Air Force, particularly with Air Force in their, run heavy scheme, where it's going to be a disruption point for JMU. And also just in general, if you look at the line again, you got an 11-1 team laying a field goal to an 8-4 team. This should be 7.5, 8, 9, 9.5, 10. If you just expect like historical neutrality in the matchup, just an incredibly short line. And then they get steamed towards us for a half point. So just how you cap these games. Troy versus Duke. You got Sunbelt versus ACC, and Sunbelt's laying a touchdown plus. You think about line strength and discrepancy in the matchup, what the numbers telling you in the matchup. That's all I look at. And I think that it's usually completely opposite to what people look at, because most people see Sunbelt laying 7.5. They say, wow, Duke can't lose by 7.5. Basically, everything I do is the polar opposite of public handicapping. Like Sharky Waters Nation is the polar utter opposite to public handicapping. So it's all just understanding where the law of averages is lying in the line in the matchup. And, with the G-Tech UCF over, I just saw clustered overs. That's why I bought it at 64. Obviously, it steamed up 3.5 points. We'd love to see that. What else do we have here? Just going down it real quick. We have Texas at 4.5 now. And I think we have one other one, but I think that's pretty much it. Basically, the bottom line is it's all just numerical analysis of the line versus the matchup and the whole dynamic and whatever it is. Yeah, those are the spots. I think we go 5-2, honestly. I really do. I think we go 5-2. So I heard somebody laughing. I was like, did somebody infiltrate the broadcast? Their infiltration. An hour in the books, as I always have about an hour. Just want to give you guys the full rundown, the early looks in the NFL and college football. Appreciate you guys so much. Sending you guys the best vibes to the screen. Best vibes. Appreciate you guys so much. Have a great night. We'll be on here tomorrow with the best looks in the NBA. Let's dominate. Sharky Waters Nation. 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave out of the water. Let's go.